So for number one, it says that Keith has $500 in a savings account at the beginning of summer. He wants to have at least $200 at the end of the summer. He withdraws $25 per week for food, clothing, and movie tickets.
I
How
can't hear
many
you
weeks
talking.
can Keith withdraw money from his account? So we know that he's starting off with a total of $500. And then every week he's withdrawing $25. When you withdraw $25, that means you're taking away $25 from your account. So we're going to subtract 25 times the number of weeks because he's going to be taking out $25 every single week. He wants at least $200. So he wants this amount, 500 minus how much he takes out, to be greater than or equal to $200. The smallest number that his account can get to is 200. And this is how we write that. So at this point, we can solve for W. We're going to subtract 500 on both sides. On the left side, we're going to have negative 25W is greater than or equal to 200 minus 500 is negative 300. I'm going to write that up here. Negative 25W is greater than or equal to negative 300. And to get W by itself, we can divide by negative 25. Now, the important part here is that when we divide or multiply by a negative number, and we're dealing with these inequalities, the inequality flips. So instead of W being greater than or equal to this number, now W is less than or equal to whatever number we get here. Negative 300 divided by negative 25 is going to be 12. So that means that the most number of weeks that Keith can withdraw from his account is going to be a total of 12 weeks. So we set up an equation to represent the situation, and then we solved for the variable. With inequalities specifically, whenever we multiply or divide by a negative, the sign flips, so that's something else to keep in mind. Number two, a taxi charges a flat rate of $1.75 plus an additional 65 cents per mile. If Erica has at most $10 to spend on the cab ride, how far could she travel? So it tells us how much, or it gives us the information to build an equation on the situation, on how much the taxi charges. So it charges a flat rate of $1.75. So we're going to write 175 plus an additional 65 cents per mile. So plus 0.65 times the number of miles. If Erica has at most $10 to spend on the cab ride, how far can she travel? So whatever this amount is, it cannot exceed, it has to be less than or equal to $10. Now that we have the inequality that represents the situation, we can solve for our variable. The first step is to subtract 1.75 on both sides, minus 1.75. On the left, this cancels, and we're left with 0.65 m is less than or equal to 10 minus 1.75, which would be 8.25. Then the last step to get m by itself is going to be to divide by 0.65 on both sides, and we'll find that Erica can travel a total of, let's see, 8.25 divided by 0.65, a total of 12.7 miles. So the number of miles has to be less than this number. I guess the most important part about these types of equations is being able to write the situation based off the question that they're asking you. For number three, Chris wants to order DVDs over the internet. Each DVD costs $15.99 and shipping the entire order costs $9.99. If he can spend no more than $100, how many DVDs could he buy? So each DVD costs $15.99, and shipping for the entire order costs $9.99. So we know that $15.99 times the number of DVDs, we'll call it M again for movies, plus the one-time shipping fee for the entire order, which is $9.99, can be no more than $100. This has to be strictly less than or equal to 100. And then from here, you just solve for M, which I'm pretty sure you're able to do. Number 4, Allison practices her violin for at least 12 hours per week. She practices for 3/4 of an hour each session. If Allison has already practiced 3 hours this week, how many sessions remain for her to meet or exceed her weekly goal? So she has a goal of at least 12 hours per week. She practices for 3/4 of an hour each session. So to figure out how many sessions there would be in 12 hours, we would divide 12 by 3/4. And this is going to tell us the total amount of sessions in 12 hours. So whenever we have a number divided by a fraction, we can multiply it by the reciprocal of the bottom, and that'll be 12 times 4/3. 12 times 4 is 48. 48 divided by 3 is going to be 16. So in order to have 12 hours per week, Allison has to have 16 sessions in total. Allison has already practiced for 3 hours of this week. So she has already completed 1/4 of the week. So this correlates to 4 sessions. So she's completed 4 of the 16 sessions this week. How many more sessions remains for her to meet or exceed her weekly goal? So if she's already completed 4 and she needs to complete 16 each week, then there's a total of 12 sessions remaining. So the answer here would be 12 sessions. Okay. How do you feel with that?
Oh, good. Wait, can you hear me?
You there?
Wait, can you hear me?
No. No. Nope. I cannot hear you. You can put it in the chat, if anything. Okay. All right, so I want you to try this first one. And then send me a message in the chat when you get your answer. And if you have any questions about any of the other lessons, put it in the chat and let me know. Yeah, the answer is A. Yeah, so we end up getting here, when we subtract 3x, we get x, and when we add 3, we get -2. And we know that x is going to be less than or equal to -2, and -1 is the only one that's not less than or equal to -2. Try these two. These are both harder questions. So both of them are section 4 questions, and they're pretty deep into section 4. So let me know what you get for them. Let me know if you want me to go over.
Does my mic work now?
No, they're not. Neither of them are. They're the same answer, but they're not C. So for the first one, on January 1st, 2000, there were 175,000 tons of trash in a landfill that has a capacity of 325,000 tons. Each year since then, the amount of trash in the landfill increased by 7,500 tons. If Y represents the time in years, which of the following inequalities describes the situation where the landfill is at or above capacity? So we need to think about a few things. where is the landfill at right now? How much is it increasing by, and what is its capacity? So it says right now, the landfill has a total of 175,000 tons. So let me write that, 175,000 tons. Next, we need to see by how much is it increasing. So each year it's increasing by a total of 7,500 times the number of years. You thought it had to be under. Yeah. So at or above. So this expression, which represents how much the landfill would be at, over the capacity, which will be answer choice D. And this other one's pretty tricky too. So a project manager estimates that a project will take X hours to complete, where X is bigger than 100. So this is the estimated time, X. The goal is for the estimate to be within 10 hours of the time it will actually take to complete the project. So it could either be 10 hours more or 10 hours less. If the manager meets the goal and it takes Y hours, so he met the objective of being within 10 hours, and Y is that number of hours, which of the following inequalities represents the relationship between the estimated time and the actual completion time? So this is going to be an absolute value question. We have Y, the time it actually took, and X, the time that it was expected to take. And when we take the absolute value of this difference, then we know that we get a number less than 10. So when we subtract the actual time that it took by the time that it was expected to take, it meets this goal of being within 10 hours because the manager met the goal. So we know that the difference has to be within 10 hours because the objective was met of being within 10 hours. When we have an absolute value, which this should actually be in the next one, we're going to go over these now, but this separates into two separate inequalities. One of them will be Y minus X is less than 10, which looks exactly the same just without the absolute value. The second one, we're going to flip the inequality and we're going to multiply the opposite side by -1. So we'll have Y minus X is greater than -10. And if we write this in order, we know that -10 is less than X minus Y, and X minus Y is less than 10, which will be answer choice D.